Just missing the cut this week at number 6 was the San Jose Sharks. I really feel like they're up.
Oh, I'm sure. They were right there.
Well,
if they hadn't lost those 32 games to begin the season,
I think that they're just about to hit that peak. Let's see. Let's talk about the actual top 5.
Big win last night.
They did have a big win last night. It's true. Let's talk about our actual top 5, though. My actual top 5. I'm going to start with number 5 with the Dallas Stars. I love this Dallas Stars team. They're actually coming off a little bit of a rough stretch right now. They've lost 3 out of 4. They've had a really tough schedule in that stretch. They lost to Colorado, they lost to Calgary, and they lost to Vegas. 2 of the 3 are really great teams. Calgary's kind of in the middle right now. They did beat the Rangers in that stretch last Monday in a big win. Talking about the strengths of this Dallas team, it starts down the middle. They might have the best center depth in the league. Joe Pavelski, Roope Hintz, Wyatt Johnson. You're not going to find too much better of a top 9 in terms of 3 centers down the line. And they also have great goaltending. Jake Ottinger, one of the best goalies in the league. They kill penalties in front of him, and they do all the little things well. Like I said, coming off a bit of a rough stretch, but they're looking good. As we take a look at their weaknesses and things that they need to improve about, they don't get a lot of scoring out of their defense. Miro Heiskanen's their best defenseman. They get a lot of scoring out of him. Outside of that, they're not really getting too much contribution from anybody else. And in addition to that, because of that aforementioned defensive scoring, they don't have a really explosive power play. Jason Robinson's their guy, but he hasn't had as good of a year as he's had in the past. And they're not really getting a lot out of anybody else. So as they move forward, trying to find somebody to really help explode on that power play, get a little more scoring out of the defense is going to be big for Dallas.
And next up is
taking a look at number 4, the Boston Bruins. Now, if I did these power rankings last week, I might have put Boston at number 1, but they suffered 2 pretty tough losses and have really not been playing their best hockey lately. For whatever reason, Boston cannot figure out the Detroit Red Wings this season. 3 regulation losses this year, 2 of which to Detroit, and of course, giving up 7 goals, which I did find out today, the most goals Linus Ullmark has given up as a Bruin was that 7-goal stretch to the Rangers on Sunday. So they're playing not their best hockey right now, but at the end of the day, the strength of this team, even if it didn't show last week, is their defense. They are a stout defensive team. They kill penalties, and they got great goaltending between Ullmark and Swayman. So really, really the strength of this team. They don't have a ton of weaknesses. I kind of stretched to find some weaknesses here. Faceoffs are one of them. They lost Patrice Bergeron to retirement in the offseason. He was obviously their big-time faceoff guy. Other than that, if you're looking forward to the Bruins in terms of what comes next, finding some scoring outside of Pasternak. Pasternak is obviously an elite goal scorer when we're looking at what he can bring to the table. But after that, if you look at their leading goal scorers, guys like Coyle and Zacha, they're not guys that strike fear into your hearts. So finding somebody else to kind of be that Robin to Pasternak is going to be big for the Bruins moving forward. I think they had a rough stretch. I think they'll be back up into the top 3 soon enough. The LA Kings, the darling team of this season, in my opinion. I don't think anybody anticipated them to be as good as they've been. I would have pegged them as a playoff team to start the season. I don't know if I would have pegged them as the 3rd best team, at least in my opinion, to start. But they have gotten contributions from guys that, frankly, not a ton of people expected the contributions they've got, which is why I talk about in their weaknesses some sustainability. They're getting production from guys like Cam Talbot, Trevor Moore, and Quentin Byfield that I don't think people would have anticipated getting from those 3 guys before the season starts. Now, is that here to stay? Kings fans are hopeful for that, but I'm not sure that will be the case. However, what I will say is if I do have to predict a guy that it will stay with, it's Cam Talbot. The strength of this team is their defense. They might have the best defense in the league, at the very least the best defense in the West. They have a really strong defensive system in front of Talbot. They're killing penalties. They're doing a great job in front of them. I think the Kings are just a really difficult team to play against right now, especially when they're in the same division as my number 2 team, the Vegas Golden Knights. The reigning Stanley Cup champions are still here. They're still strong. They're still a force to be reckoned with. I know that they've had some losses, but I think that they're still the team to be out in the West. Their top 6 is unmatched compared to a lot of teams. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, William Karlsson. They can put up points at will. They can score. They can make things happen from all areas of the ice. They're a dangerous team to play against. Now, if you're looking at what comes next for Vegas and you're looking at the things that might slow them down, durability. They played longer. They played more hockey than every other team in the league last year, minus the team they beat in the Stanley Cup Finals. And that does seem to have an effect on teams as the season wears along. In addition to that, secondary scoring. If you take a look at their scoring on the roster right now, they're getting the points out of Eichel, the Stones, the Carlsons, etc. They're not getting a ton of scoring out of that bottom six. And while that might not hurt you in the regular season, when you're playing teams like the Sharks and the Coyotes, when it comes to the playoffs, you need those guys to really step up for you. Now let's talk about our number one team. This joys me to say that the New York Rangers are my number one team this week. And, some people might call it bias, but when you lead the team in wins and you have, after that 2-2 start, you've basically been 12-1-2 since. You're 7-1-1 without Adam Fox in the lineup. You deserve this number one spot. When you look at this Rangers team, it's been built on the same strengths it's been on the last couple of years. Their power play and their goaltending. And I'd be remiss if I didn't bring up the fact that Artemi Panarin has been insane for this Rangers team this year. Leading up until that Dallas game on Monday, he had scored or assisted on 53% of their goals this year, which is an absolutely crazy number. Now, the number has gone down after he was held scoreless a couple times last week, but still, the element that he brings to this lineup is unmatched. When you're talking about what to look for with the Rangers next, they really need to put some full game efforts. They need to keep things sustainable. Right now, they've been leaning a lot on guys like Panarin. And Zibanejad, who hasn't had the great of a year, really needs to step up. They need to be able to put in 60 minutes of effort. They can't have those weak third periods like they did against Dallas, or those weak, end of first periods that they did against Boston on Saturday. And I don't know how much I fully buy into my bottom six weakness. It's growing. It's getting better. It was a rough start. The fourth line really took some time to gel. They're getting together now. We did lose Filipino. He should hopefully back soon. But really, kind of enticed to see, what the Rangers do moving forward. They are must-watch TV right now.
Thank you, John. And I'll go ahead and actually did have the rest of our top fives up here. And most of us, all of us actually had the same. Why is this? Sorry, the slideshow is not showing the right first slide. Okay, well, we'll pull that off. Anyway, all of us had the same number one team in our power rankings, but everybody had a little bit different 2 through 5. Why don't you go ahead and give your feedback on the power rankings that John gave Kyle, and any differences that you might have had?
Yeah, the only real difference that I had was I have the Kings in the number 2 spot. A team that hasn't lost on the road yet is formidable, and once they put together that home record, which is pretty close to 500 right now, it might not be sustainable, but for a power rankings that we're doing, that would be the only change that I would do right now. That team is unstoppable on the road. How about you, Luke? What did you think?
Yeah, I think John knocked it out of the ballpark here. Maybe my one change is putting the Canucks in the top 5. I know they're 5th in the league in points. They played 22 games, but I mean, you look at this roster up and down, and they got everything covered. I mean, Thatcher Demko is if not elite, as close to elite as you can get in a goaltender. Might be if not the best goaltender in the league, definitely the best goaltender in the Pacific. I can't say enough about Quinn Hughes. I mean, he's on track to be top defenseman again this year. And the offense has all the playmakers too. I mean, you have Pettersson, you have Besser, who's played really well. Again, the one knock is they played the Sharks 3 times. They played the Predators twice. They played the Oilers twice, and the Oilers have struggled at the beginning of the year. But those are games you got to win, and they won them. So I think in terms of roster construction and potential, I think they need to be discussed in the top 5.
Yeah, they'd be right outside my top 5. I put them at 6.
You got them at 6. Right. Sorry.
Right behind the Sharks.
No. There were 7 after the
Sharks. Yeah. As I said before, all 4 of us had the Rangers at number 1. And just an observation from myself, and you guys maybe help add some clarity on it. It seems like the West has got a big gulf because it seems like there's a lot of our top 5s had West teams in it. But it seems like there's a big drop off after those teams, and it kind of has a lot of muddy middle, basically. And a lot lot of the other power rankings that rank all 32 teams in the NHL, it seems like a lot of the bottom half of the power rankings are West teams. So what do you guys think on that? Is that accurate, or is that just something I'm imagining when I look at that and that kind of thing? Or what is your thoughts?
The West has got a handful of really bad teams and a handful of really underperforming teams. And I think that it creates a giant gap in what you're seeing. Everybody expected the Sharks to be bad going into the season. That's not a surprise. But I don't think as many people expected teams like Minnesota, teams like Edmonton to be as bad as they have been. And I think that's created the disconnect that it has. With that being said, I feel like there's been a lot of underperformance in the East as well from teams that you didn't expect it. Teams like Carolina and New Jersey not playing as well as you have.